All right, hey guys, Derek here, and we have so many brand stinking new government contractors come into the space, come into the channel, come in here on YouTube. So I'm gonna do a video I haven't made for a while, and it's gonna be at the very, very beginning stages, and it's gonna be spending some time on SAM.gov, reintroducing, spending some time specifically today showing you how to search for contracts on SAM.gov. So if you have some ideas in mind, I'll show you how to apply those ideas for your business. We'll just go ahead and get started. So you'll see that we're over here at SAM.gov. And SAM is the System for Award Management. This is specifically for federal contracts. Okay, you're not going to see city, state, federal, also known as SLED contracts. You won't see these on SAM.gov. So this is for the federal space, all 50 states. And there's a number of different tabs here, and in this video we're not going to go through everything. Like I said, we're going to try to pretty much stay on point to those searches. So with that being said, we'll just go ahead and navigate over to contracting. Let me click it again. I'm not sure if it went through. There we go. As we click through to contracting, we can start typing stuff in here if we want. We can search contract opportunities or subcontract reports. My preference, and I know many of yours as well, is just to bounce over to the advanced search and kind of just, get right into the thing so that you can actually start running real searches. So you're immediately hit with keyword search. So keywords are going to be any type of words that could be used as tags to pull up the opportunities that you're searching for. So for example, with a janitorial opportunity, you might think keywords like janitorial, housekeeping, even custodial. These types of keywords could possibly pull up contracts that you might be interested in if janitorial contracts is something that you're interested in for. It allows us to search by any words, all words, or an exact phrase. Now, any words, the search results will contain one or some or all keywords entered. So it can be one, it can be a couple, or it can be like all, right? So any words that you put in, it's gonna pull back searches that has at least one of those. All words is where the search results will contain all the keywords entered. So if you don't want like one or the other, but say you want both and you don't want anything other than both, you could do that. And this would be an example of if you're searching for something very specific and you want to really weed out a lot. So there's a very specific thing that you're looking for, and you want it to contain all the words. You could use that particular keyword search. And the exact phrase, it's similar. Their definition is the search results will contain the exact phrase from the keyword search. So it might just be a longer string of words, a longer string of keywords, or in a particular sequence or order, perhaps you would want to use exact phrase. Okay. Typically, early stages, I recommend any words because it's going to be a clue for you to see what other criteria you can further search by. And I'll explain what I mean by that in just a little bit too. Now, search editor, it allows you to, they're giving you an example here, rental and property, or leased and property, and not short term. So it allows you to create a bit of rules to edit your searches. Again, not necessarily something that you are starting out with, but if you're doing rental and property and you want solicitations that have only rental and property, that's something that you can use as the search editor here, as well as like lease and property, and not short term. But they're using this as one entire kind of rule that's going to get you very, very specific, and for many of you it's going to be too specific. But just know that's there. Feel free to play around with it. Typically not necessary for what you're going to be trying to accomplish here for the most part. Now, in terms of keywords, you can type whatever you want in this box here. They're referencing a solicitation number with the DODAC W91QVN. So if you happen to know a solicitation number of an existing opportunity that you're wanting to go after, or just come back to, then by all means, punch that thing in, it'll probably only bring up one search result, or maybe a couple if there's been amendments made, or sources sought notices pushed out, perhaps. But it's going to pretty much be limited to that opportunity. Otherwise, you're kind of using what we just talked about with these keywords. You're using any words, you're using all words, you're using exact phrases. So if we wanted to do janitorial, we could just type in janitorial. And there's 261 results. We haven't applied any other filters, but just doing a quick browse. Janitorial is showing up in many of the titles. It's not in this title, so it's also searching the description more than likely. But we're seeing here custodial, even though we didn't type that in, so it probably has janitorial. Let's go ahead and just check the description. See if there's janitorial anywhere. Yeah, so it's because they're using the PSC code and naics code that it's tagging it, it's finding it that way. But we can see, for the most part here, it's right in the title. If we wanted to try another word like custodial, there's 257 results, so nearly the same exact search list that you're going to have here. So it's a good place to get started for some contracts, and in other contracts, you need to be a bit more specific. And when I say that, typically we get a bit more specific when it comes to naics code. So if you come down here, down your tabs, your search tabs, there's product or service information. Today we're not going to really focus on PSC codes, but we see that we also have first and foremost the naics code. So naics code is North American Industry Classification System code. Every good or service that's bought in the country is tagged with a naics code. And it's not just limited to federal government contracting. For example, if you go to open a bank account, or maybe even you recently opened your business bank account, when you do that, they will ask for the naics code. What is the good or service primarily that your company is offering? And this isn't, it's government contracting, but even if you're in the commercial space, you know what I'm saying? The government thinks in terms of these tags. So this is really something that just spills over to GovCon, but is not exhaustive or limited to GovCon alone. So if we want to get more specific with our searches, if we click on naics code, we can see that they give us around a couple dozen high-level code groupings, if you will. So for example, there's agricultural, utilities, construction. Construction may interest some of you, so the 2 3s. Others, though, may be information, 5 1s. Professional, scientific, and technical services are the 5 4s. A lot are in the 5 6s for administrative, support, waste management, etc. So you're going to find that some of these groupings are going to be predominant for what you're wanting your searches to be. So if we're talking about searching more specifically, once again, we're jumping to that naics code step. Now this is kind of a way to back in, and this is a very logical, intelligent, strategic way to approach selecting naics codes, or at least exploring naics codes. So if we go back to the previous step and say we just typed custodial and 257 search results, cool. If we just, for example, start to open some of these, and I'll open those in separate tabs so that we don't lose our page here, we can see what naics code the government has already applied to these opportunities that we found using a keyword. So they're using 561720. And I'll go ahead and check these others, but typically, just because I know from experience, janitorial is primarily put under this one particular code. And yeah, we're seeing all 4 of these examples all plugged under the same naics code. So although there could be various different keywords that ultimately get you here, if you want to search more specifically, and you're just searching by 561720 naics code, it is perhaps a more direct way of searching. So we can do that. We can plug that into our naics codes, 561720. And now we have 202 results. So the search results are actually pulling up for this, what this tells us, because before there was 240, 250 search results, I believe. Actually, let's just double check that. For custodial, yeah, there's 257. But for janitorial direct, now there's, oh, that's the wrong code. It's 1720. I misclicked. Okay, so for janitorial direct, it's 202. So it's letting us know that there's also other opportunities that are being grouped in, or there's more than one NAICS code being used to procure custodial and janitorial opportunities. So this is like you're following the clues now, and you can do this sort of stuff, and I do recommend that you spend some time doing this with different NAICS, starting with different keywords and seeing what different NAICS codes you can pull. So if you want to open up an Excel sheet, a Word doc, whatever, and start making a list, this is helping you to really dial in on what are going to be the search NAICS codes, what are going to be the search keywords that are really going to be effective at pulling up what you're possibly interested in exploring in terms of a federal government contract opportunity. You can read through it, you can go through the attachments, you can try to maybe even work with something like ChatGPT to ballpark dollar values, all kind of preliminary additional steps that you can take to say, hey, is this something that I want to invest into putting a proposal and pricing together and bidding on to perhaps stand a chance at winning? Okay, so a lot of these early steps are very, very important, because if you don't really get these nailed down early on, it could lead to time-wasting activities. For example, you're looking at opportunities that are kind of all over the place, or you're considering opportunities that are not necessarily exactly what you were looking for, but perhaps because you're not finding exactly what you're looking for, you're kind of just looking at whatever, right? And that doesn't change to say, if truly you're not finding what you're looking for, okay, I know the federal government, they say buys everything. Not everything is on SAM.gov, right? So there is no magic wand at the end of the day. If you're not finding the opportunities that you're looking for, and you've tried to do exhaustive keyword NAICS codes list searches, it shouldn't be that hard. So if you're really not finding it, it means more than likely it's not here. It's not being bought on the open federal market here on SAM.gov. They perhaps could be tied up in GSA schedules, or they could be passed down to the state, which means you would have to get plugged into, for example, your state county apex, whatever apexes are across your state, to get those more state local opportunities. It doesn't mean the government's not buying it. It just means maybe the federal arm of the government isn't buying it, and maybe it's been passed down to the states, or like I said, perhaps is tied up in something like a GSA schedule, or maybe even contracts that only open up once every 5 or 10 years, like MATOCs, where they're going to on-ramp and off-ramp companies to bring new companies on and kick off those that were not active. And you might only see those a couple times a decade, depending on the size and frequency of that particular MATOC. So with that being said, we've just looked at keywords and we've looked at NAICS codes. It's important, if you're going to be doing real searches, that you understand at least basic concept what some of these other filters mean too. So I do want to take some time to make sure that you have a fairly good understanding, and you can rewind this if I go over something too quickly, so that you really start to get a grasp for it. So federal organizations, agencies. So for example, the Army or the DoD, right? Army goes within DoD. You can scroll through this list, or you can search. For example, if you search department, you get agriculture, commerce, Department of Education, which I don't think is there anymore, energy, health and human services, right? Department of Justice, Labor, State, DOT, Department of Transportation, VA. So depending on what you're looking for, you can scroll through this list and educate yourself, or you can type something into search. And why would you do this? Well, perhaps you have a target agency. Maybe you've followed my proof of concept example, and I can do another updated video for this perhaps, where you find which agencies are buying the most of the good or service that you're wanting to offer to the federal government, right? And so you do that and you're like, okay, undoubtedly the Army is number one. The Army is spending the most money on janitorial, for example, right? So I'm going to search specifically opportunities for the Army. So there's like over 5,000. And if we wanted to put our NAICS code back in now, that will further cross-reference. We go from 5,600 to 92. So we're seeing, this is awarded, this is market research, this is live solicitations, this is everything. 92 currently, but they all have the 561720 NAICS code, so we know it's janitorial. And just looking at the titles here, we can see that the variations, right? Dining hall attendant services, or cleaning contract, custodial services, kitchen deep cleaning, lake office janitorial, custodial at the Army Reserve Center in Ohio. Okay, so we're seeing, cust services, I'm not sure what that is. But we're seeing a variant, which is great because it means we're in the right place. And it's also going to further educate us on what's actually out there, what's actually being bought under a particular NAICS code by now a particular agency, and not just any agency, but a target agency, an agency that's buying the most of the good or service that we're wanting to offer. Like I said, I can do another video that shows you, if you don't know how to do that, over on USA Spending, feel free to do that. But that could be one way that you back into an agency. Additionally, we have dates. Now, dates can be really important, especially when you're looking at live opportunities. For example, if you're looking at solicitation, something to bid on, I typically recommend something that's due. So this isn't just any date, it's response date offers due. So if you're looking at something that's due over the next 30 days, now this list went down to 14. If we opened it up to the next 3 months, it goes up, it goes to 14. So no real change there. What about the next year? Next year, it's still 14. So either it's not updating because it's weird that it would stay the same. Let's try anytime. Okay, anytime goes to 92. So it is updating, so that's accurate. It's just, it's including a lot of past, is my guess. Because if we're doing next year, it's probably, there's probably some awards in here and probably some things that have already finished. But I want you to play with this, and I'm just telling you, the recommendation kind of standard is going to be for live bids, it's going to be next month or next 3 months, whatever you're comfortable with. And then the updated date, if you want to, you can play around with this, but it's for this, I'm not going to go into it, and I'll just tell you for what you're doing right now, it's not going to be necessary. Now, I want to go immediately into notice type because it ties directly into the response date. So it's almost like I can't really talk about one without talking about the other. So I want to talk about both. So when it comes to notice type, I say that there's 4 stages of every bid. And every opportunity typically, not always, but typically flows through these 4 sequential steps, one after the other, after the other, after the other. So stage 1 is the sources sought notice, right here. Sources sought. Sources sought is when the government is performing market research. And what they're doing is they're putting out a bit of information. So they're saying, hey, we're going to have a requirement in the future. We don't have it right now, but in the future, and maybe they'll attach something like a statement of work, or maybe they'll just provide a little bit of information. And they're going to ask you to respond to that as a way of indicating who, in terms of businesses, specifically small businesses, might be interested in responding to this again in the future when the future solicitation comes out. That's a sources sought. And you can respond to that if you're interested by providing a typical tailored capability statement, okay, reflecting, for this instance, janitorial services. So you want to tailor it. And then if they ask you any specific requirement questions, like, how would you provide this? Is this something that you would be able to provide? Do you have questions for us in contracting? You can also answer those questions as part of the sources sought response too. Now, they're not required. It's not required to respond to a sources sought to bid on a future opportunity. It's typically a way to help contracting know who you are. But I just want to be very clear that it in no way plays a role to who's going to win the contract. Just because you responded to the sources sought and somebody else didn't, somebody can literally just fly in last minute, respond to the proposal, and win it. Okay, if they meet the appropriate pricing and evaluation factors for the proposal, the sources sought is not going to play a role in that whatsoever. As long as they meet the set aside, the proposal due date, and everything that they need to meet, if they had to go to a site visit, etc. As long as they check all the boxes, that is possible. So the purpose of responding to a sources sought is not to win a contract. It's to provide the government contracting officials market research if you feel like doing them a favor, because that's really what it is. It's a favor, and what you kind of get out of it is it's like a form of marketing. They get to see your business. Marketing does not always generate directly into sales, right? So you can't necessarily say that this is going to apply to you winning this particular contract. So it's up to you. It's really a judgment call if you want to provide that market research to the government, because you don't have to. But that's kind of stage one. Now I'm going to speed up a little bit because I'm talking a little bit more about these than I intended to. Stage two is pre-solicitation. No response is required. Pre-solicitation is a FYI. It's contracting saying, okay, we received your responses to the sources sought market research. Thank you so much. Based on the information we received, this is going to be our future procurement strategy. So at this stage, they may release information like, okay, we're going to go total small business set aside on this, or maybe 8A or woman-owned set aside based on the companies that we saw respond. Small businesses can perform on this. Or maybe they say that they can't, and it's going to be full and open. Microsoft, Boeing, Amazon, anybody can bid on this once the bid comes out. They can also share information about site visits upcoming, and maybe any sort of pre-proposal conferences. If it's going to be a big proposal that's going to require something like that, it'll be FYI information just like that. So if you're following this opportunity from the sources sought stage, it would be good for you to get that additional info that comes with the pre-salt. Now, stage three is going to be solicitation and combined synopsis solicitation. You want to search by both of those, and that means, hey, the live bid is here. You can actually bid on this and respond to it, and you just might win, or you might lose. But either way, it's live, you can go after it, and you got to get stuff in before the due date, right? So that's where this response due date is going to come in. I mean, it'll definitely apply for sources sought notices as well. But that's why it's important to use both of these levers, response due date and notice type, so that you're essentially finding out when what is due, okay? And then stage four is, you guessed it, it's going to be the award notice. So if you want to look at only awarded contracts, right, for janitorial under the 561720 NAICS code, under the Army, it's saying no matches found, right? So they're not sharing that information. If we take away the Army, it's also not showing up. So you also have to do some additional searches to see if anything is still active, because eventually these solicitations will go inactive and they will be archived, so they won't be showing up in typical regular searches. So sometimes you will see this information and sometimes you won't. It just depends on how much time is elapsing, what time of year it is, right, and how much of this particular contract buy is being awarded and shown. So if it's not on here, that means it's being kicked over to another feeder portal, which is going to be FPDS, so Federal Procurement Data System, FPDS.gov. That's where all contracts that have been awarded, all the contract data and updates and maintenance get kicked over to that site. So if you're interested, I can also do another refresher on how to use fpds.gov to research awarded contracts, because SAM.gov is not really the place, as you can see, where you're going to get the most accurate and up-to-date information for that. It's, again, going to be fpds.gov. So just a few more We have set aside, so if you are wanting to, this one's a bit more intuitive, dive into specific set asides. For example, if you're veteran owned, and you want to look at only VOSB or SDVOSB contracts, you'll have the opportunity to do that by selecting here from the set aside tab. So for example, you can see that you have the veteran owned small business specific to the VA, but then you have the SDVOSB that's more open to contracting, which is cited by FAR 19.14, where you're going to have the SDVOSB, Services Disabled Veteran Owned Small Business, set aside. So if you're wanting to look at something more specific, just with these filters, we're seeing for janitorial, there's actually 6 live opportunities for that. So the VA, the Air Force, the VA, the Army, the FAA, and once again, the VA. So also shows you, a look at different agencies too. I don't recommend just sticking to one agency. Try to do like your top 3, and if there's a lot, maybe your top 5. So this is once again another good example of how this information is coming at you in different ways, allowing you to really sit back and say, wow, okay, I think I have an idea of what I want to do, what I want to go after, who's going to have the best chance of having it, and now I'm just going to have to get to work finding the right opportunities for me to write proposals and pricing to, and essentially go after them, right? Because that's really the next necessary step. Now, aside from that, you can search place of performance. So zip code, state, territory, country. So if you are looking in a particular state, this is definitely going to get a lot more specific. Say we go Texas, there's going to be nothing. Let me take off the veteran set-asides and see. Yeah, still nothing for that. And just to make sure this is working, I'm going to take off our NAICS code. So yeah, it may not be, SAM is a little bit glitchy, or maybe I'm just using the wrong box because I wrote Texas inside of zip code instead of actually putting it into the state. So we all have to be careful, even me, to make sure that we're searching properly. So let's just, in case you missed it, 277 for the state of Texas. Let me plug in our NAICS code one more time. And we have 3. So we have 3. And I'm actually going to open these up. Let me close out the old ones. And we can pretty much already see just from high view that, Texas, Lackland Air Force Base is in Texas. And then doing control find for Texas. Did I see Waco somewhere? No. Oh yeah, Fort Sam Houston, Texas. So 3 confirmed. The search is accurate. And you can do that with zip code if you would like as well. And if you're going to be doing CONUS, which is continental United States, typically you don't have to put in United States, but if you're going to be searching outside for OCONUS, outside the continental United States, feel free to utilize the country filter as well. So from here, you could go on, you could sign in, you could set up saved searches. There's a lot of places you can go from here, but I kind of wanted to get started by doing a refresher, a quick overview here of, again, SAM.gov, how to search, what do some of these search filters mean, and how you can work together using them simultaneously to, again, really drill down on what you're looking to do for your business, whether you're existing commercial-based business and you're bringing it to the federal space, or you're looking to start a business in federal government contracting and you're trying to figure out where to get started. Hopefully this information can help get you started. If you want to keep learning, you want to keep watching, I do have an upcoming awesome webinar training. It's 30-35 minutes. It's very succinct, very powerful. I would also highly recommend that you check that out. I will have a link down below. It's totally free, and you'll be able to snag your spot for that upcoming training as well. It'll really meet you where you're at with this, but it's not focused on SAM. The title for it currently is How to Win Contracts Faster Without Wasting Time and Money. So I especially recommend it for new GovCons that are trying to figure out their strategy in the space. This way you don't fall prey to a lot of gimmicks and myths and taking wrong paths and spending a lot of money or paying somebody thousands of dollars to get registered in SAM.gov. None of that's necessary. So instead, in this training, I'm going to show you what you don't need to do. So save your money, keep your wallet in your pocket, and then what you should invest your time, energy, resources into, because they're going to have the best benefit for your business moving forward in the space to win contracts and, like I said, win contracts faster. So I hope that this kind of unique overview of SAM.gov refresher, or for some of you it was maybe a first, was helpful. If this was helpful, let me know down in the comments, and if you're interested in seeing any additional tutorials, I guess this really was a tutorial more than anything else today. If you want to see additional tutorials on federal government systems, and again, maybe some that I had mentioned, feel free to let me know specifically which ones down below, and I will consider making some more of those if we have enough demand. So until next time, guys, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and you got this.